to today's devotion. I'm glad you're joining in. This week, we've been talking about some important lessons about the discipleship of Jesus, how to be a good disciple of Jesus. And so, I'm not going to review everything we went over. You can check those out. So, today, I kind of want to pick up where we left off. And today's lesson about discipleship is this. If we want to be a good disciple of Jesus Christ, we need to be willing to change and adapt. Right? We need to be willing to change and adapt to the things around us. Now, I know on the surface that sounds like a dangerous kind of teaching, but please bear with me and you'll understand here in a moment. So let's look at Acts 16, verse 3. It says, Paul wanted this man to go with him. It's referencing Timothy. And he took him and circumcised him because of the Jews who were in those parts, for they all knew that his father was Greek. And so basically what's happening here is that Timothy has been raised in a Greek home, right? In a Greek influenced home. And so for him to be able to reach the Jews in the area, he's going to have to be circumcised so that the Jews will listen. In other words, he has to kind of adapt to some of what they believe to be able to reach them and to be able to get them to listen to the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, there's something further here. I want to turn to 1 Corinthians. And 1 Corinthians chapter 9, there's a bit of reading here, but I think we need to read the whole thing because it's very important. So it says this, starting in verse 19, for though I am free from all men, I have made myself a slave to all, so that I may win more. To the Jews I became as a Jew, so that I might win Jews to those who are under the law, as under the law, though not being under myself under the law, so that I might win those who are under the law. To those who are without the law, as without the law, though not being without the law of God, but under the law of Christ, so that I might win those who are without the law. So to the weak I became weak, that I might win the weak. I have become all things to all men, so that I may be by all means save some. I do all things for the sake of the gospel, so that I may become a fellow partaker in it. So what Paul is saying is, I've adapted to the people around me to try to reach them. To those who are under the law, I become as if under the law. And to those who are not under the law, I become as if I'm not under the law. And to the weak, I become as weak so that I may win them to Christ, right? Now, a lot of people know this verse and a lot of people will live by this verse, but there's something very important that gets left out. He says, not being myself under the law. So he's going to become like he's under the law, but not himself be under the law. Not being myself without the law of God is what he says. So he's going to reach those and be as though he's not under the law, but not be under the law. So what he's saying here is this. He is not going to violate the will of God and the righteousness of God to reach anybody. Righteousness will never lead to unrighteousness. I heard a story of a couple that lived in Florida and they were swingers, right? So a swinger, basically they get in a group and they trade spouses. I don't have to go any further than that. You understand what I'm saying? And so they go to church and they believe that they've been delivered from this. And so now as in church and they're hearing about discipleship, they're saying, we care about those people who are in that lifestyle and we want to reach them because that's what God brought us from. So they try to figure out what to do. So what they decide to do is create a Christian swingers club. Now, that obviously is absolutely absurd, right? To create a Christian swingers club, it's an oxymoron. It can't simply exist. But what happened was this: they were taught to become all things to all men, to adapt to the culture and to adapt to the people. But they were never taught repentance. They were never taught to turn from the sin. And so if we aren't taught that we still have to live under the will of God, then that concept of adapting to the culture around us can lead us into all sorts of false doctrine and lead us down all sorts of false ideas. So it's important that we understand that we need to adapt to the culture around us and to our friends and to the people around us. We have to adapt to them and be willing to change how we approach them if we want to disciple people. But it must never, ever come at the cost of God's will and of righteousness. So listen, I hope this has helped you. Until we meet again, we'll come back tomorrow and we'll kind of sum this week's teachings up. So until we meet again, may God bless you.